Welcome into HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. Good morning. I guess back-to-back days now. We've come on early. Started the week out that way around 5:30 a.m. on Monday, doing the same thing here on Tuesday. I don't know what's gotten into me. Let's get them done early. Let's talk. It's always a good time to talk Arkansas Razorbacks men's basketball. We got a few things that are topical today to get into. So I hope you enjoy that. And I can't promise that this is going to be a fun-filled episode. I can't promise that, but I can hope for it, as can you if you're up this early, because you're serious about your basketball if you're tuning in. And I think those who are in with me today, let's get right into it. One of the things I'm going to do today, if you remember over time, I say over time, the last few couple of months, actually, when the team moved onto campus late May, rolled into early June with the first summer session one, and we started getting feedback from various sources about what was going on inside the basketball performance center. Who are the players that maybe were standing out? Some things that began with the pickup games, and then they moved into the limited on-court stuff. And so we finally got a brief highlight reel on July 8th. That was one day prior. That was put out by Hogs Plus. So we saw about 8 or 9 little cut-up clip video from practice. Then the media was invited in the following day, July 9th, which was a Wednesday. We got an hour courtside to watch practice, the first 15 minutes of which we were able to record video and put that out so fans could see that. And I think since that time, maybe only one more little highlight clip that came out from Hogs Plus, maybe two more. Seems like it was only one more, so not a whole lot, not as much as in previous years. And a week after we were in there, I think, again, that was July 9th when the media was allowed in. That was a Wednesday. The following Wednesday, July 16th, was the end of limited summer practices. It ended sooner than it normally does, but they put a bow on it. That was a wrap. John Calipari got the work done that he wanted. A source told me that they counted up the days. They felt like Arkansas spent probably up to around 7 weeks on court. Now, they can go 8 weeks. So I don't know how they disperse the hours that they're allotted per week to get it done in 7, but they wrap things up in 7 weeks. And so again, we didn't get to see a whole lot in terms of what they put out on social media. And again, the media, actually working media invited in, got an hour. So there wasn't a lot there, but we kept updating with, getting reports about what was going on inside the building from various sources. And I brought you a lot of intel on one of these episodes going back to a coach. Not a coach on the Arkansas Razorback staff, but a coach who had been in the building not for one, but for 2 practices, gave me a lot of information. And this happened before we actually got to go in his media and watch. We had other sources at different times kind of talking about which players stood out, that kind of thing. So I went back with all my notes. I had one more kind of end of summer conversation yesterday with one of those sources. And this particular source was in the building more than anybody else other than the players and the coaching staff. So they saw a lot. They saw more than anybody. And so we had a kind of a wrap-up conversation. So I went back and gathered my notes on the previous shows that we did talking about these things, and then finished up with this last conversation and observations. And I came up with what I'm going to call the top 5 summer hoop hogs. We're going to rank the players by what they accomplished, who stood out the most, and maybe who heads into the fall semester getting back to practice, or as kind of the names that stood out at least in the summer, and can they build on that and snowball that in a good way, pouring into the fall semester, which eventually you ramp up practice time, and then you get into your season. October, obviously, some of your exhibition games, and then early November, bam, you're right off and running into your non-conference play in the regular season. So we're going to save that for last. We're going to quickly get into some J.J. Andrews updates, the 5-star future hog. It's really cool because he just a week ago, right? It's been less than a week, I guess, or just over a week, excuse me, where he wrapped up the Nike Peach Jam by winning the event for a second consecutive year, going from a 16 and under champion to a 17 and under, the ultimate named MVP of this most recent event. Kind of the king of the world situation coming out of spring and summer grassroots, where he was probably moved the needle as much, if not more, than anybody in terms of what kind of prospect he is. I've got him in my top 5. I ranked a top 25 for the class of 2026. I've got him ranked 4th, a 5-star. He's got a lot of hardware to prove that he equates to winning. Whatever it is he's doing out there, he's doing it right because it equates to winning. He's a 4-time champion when you count 2 high school titles here in Arkansas. He's a 2-time MVP when you add in one of those state title runs. But the player continues to develop, continues to improve, and continues to prove that he's all about winning. And so you think, well, now that Nike Peach Jam's over, the summer's over, right? That's it. Not so fast. And we talked about this in a couple of recent episodes. A couple of things. One is I referenced some summer camps where like invitation only elite camps. We're going to get into that here in a second. But the other part is, and we talked about this on Friday, I had actually almost 2/3 of an entire episode devoted to talking about JJ the recruiter. Could he become, a go-to for John Calipari, who's the greatest high school recruiter of all time? Could he become a go-to and assist in recruiting as a player recruiter already committed to Arkansas? We know that happened back in May. First off the board, first 5-star off the board, highest ranked player there for a while to be committed to a school. But a la Darius A. Cup Jr., who last year, after he visited in May, committed in July, couldn't sign until November, but he was on campus multiple times, 2 more times, when other players were brought in on official visits as a, riding shotgun as a player recruiter, right? Calipari does a good job of dialing up what he thinks will work. The adults in the room, great. If they're great at recruiting, that's one thing. But how about a player? How about, somebody that not only at the same age level where the recruits can relate to this person, but also might be a great teammate. And so there's really good reasons to do that. And so we talked about it on Friday of last week, just a few days ago. Could JJ be used and be plugged in and take part in a similar fashion? Could he be on campus for these upcoming visits, which we know are not that far off when you look at late August, just next month, about a month away, with Arafat Diani, the 7-1 center, coming in for that August 29th through the 31st visit date. Then you've got Wu Pig Sui, David Adams. Yes, WPS, that's right. Then at September 20th through 21st, the second-ranked player in the country, Jordan Smith Jr. When you look at easier to relate to a player than to a coach. Good morning, Kevin. Yeah, that's part of what I'm saying. You said it better than I did. You know me, I get to meandering, searching for those words. But, look, you've got Jordan Smith Jr. coming in September 20th through the 21st. No football game that weekend. And then after that, you've got Tay Kenny, another 5-star guard. So all these dudes, 5 stars, and through September. And so could JJ be on campus to help with this, again, like they did with Darius A. Cup Jr.? I don't know the answer to that, but I have this feeling that we might see something like that. But it was poignant and it was timely to even go there because just yesterday on Monday, J.J. Andrews took to social media. This may not seem like a lot, but it's really cool because we talked about the fact that, we broke the news that Arafat Diani would visit Arkansas. This was back on July 19th, Saturday before last, on one of these episodes. And then a couple of days later, I put a written article out, a recruiting article going 15 players deep, published that to HogvilleNET, also at Pig Trail Nation KNWA. And we included that information in that writing when we got to the capsule part about Arafat Diani and that visit plan. But then it hit social media. It actually got out, started trickling out, I think it was yesterday or Sunday, on Twitter. And so I put out a couple of tweets linking that content so people could go get more information now that it was on Twitter. And so had to say all of that. Once that splashed on Twitter, J.J. Andrews used the opportunity to use his X/Twitter account to put out a cool little reply tagging Arafat Diani in his Twitter account, basically saying lock in, and called him out by name relative to, taking that Arkansas visit now that it's gone public, go ahead and lock in. And he followed it up with 3 emojis: the lock symbol, the hog, a razorback, and then a basketball. So it's basically one recruit signaling to another, let's get this done. And what we've talked about was interesting when we brought the information and the intel that Irfan Diani was going to visit Arkansas, and we gave those dates. We also said that, obviously came from his guardian, but the guardian had told me that he brought up the fact that there was really good chemistry between J.J. Andrews and his player, Diane, during the MBPA Top 100 camp in early June. Arkansas's entire coaching staff was there, including John Calipari, but he brought up that chemistry factor. And then you see this outreach, even if it's social media right now, it's the kind of little teaser that goes back to the talking point on Friday when I had the segment bringing up JJ as the recruiter. And that's just a little example of it. Maybe we'll see more. Maybe there's interaction going on behind the scenes with phone calls or text. I think the kids just text, right? They don't want to hear each other's voices. That's something from that's that's ancient history, right? That's how we used to get it done. You didn't have text messaging or DMs, whatever it is, whatever the method. I have a feeling that JJ is going to continue to be active and involved, and then we'll see if he makes it on campus for some of these visits, including Irfan Diani. But I thought that was interesting. The other part that we'll share here with JJ is, just be really easy for him to take a few weeks off. I mean, you're an MVP. You have a case as the best player in the country right now. You've proven your wares beginning in the spring. But this is a guy that, he's just not going to stop working. One of the most elite camps out there right now. And this is a Nike Skills Academy and the skill camp. It has evolved over the years. And I think what they did last year, and I don't know how many years running, but Nike has sponsored both Chris Paul, CP3, and Jason Tatum, who, by the way, grew up through that same Brad Bill Elite Nike EYBL program that JJ finally delivered that program back-to-back Peach Jam titles after it never won any. But Jason Tatum, Chris Paul have a combined camp. Chris Paul's part of that elite camp is for point guards, combo guards, point guards, and Jason Tatum's is for wings or 3-4 combo, bigger wings, or just wings. But it starts tomorrow, or actually travel is today, and it runs through the rest of the week and ends on Friday. So I have a couple of source information here. I know that JJ's heading out to Las Vegas, which is where this camp takes place. And then I have an NBA scout who will be attending. College coaches is not a live eval. College coaches will not be able to attend, but NBA scouts will. And I have one NBA scout who will be attending and said he's heard that JJ Andrews will take part in the Jason Tatum wing part of the camp. Now, what they do is they bring in the top projected college players that play that position, the wing spot, small forward, again, combo forward, maybe a 3-4. They bring in the top college players that fit that positional build, and then the top high school players as well. So, for example, last year, Arkansas junior forward Adu Thero took part in this camp as in the Jason Tatum part. Remember the Chris Paul section of it for point guards and combo guards. So no roster's been put out yet. This will probably be released at some point this week. This is going off source information, and so, we'll see if there's something that happens that prevents this from happening. But it looks like JJ Andrews is taking part in this camp. And again, last year you had 14 college wings, 13 high school wings in the Jason Tatum part. I'm assuming the numbers were similar on the Chris Paul side of it. And what they did is, I think they're at the same location in Las Vegas, and they split up the day doing whatever they're doing, drill work, mentoring, coaching, running, doing different things. And then eventually they come together, and then I think they create teams and have competitive play. So I think I have that right. But that's the setup, and it's, again, the elite players in the country. And it makes me wonder, not knowing since Adu Thero was there last year taking part, could there be some current Razorbacks, guys that would fit the bill for the positional groups are both Darius Acuff and DJ Wagner, as well as guys like Carter Knox and Billy Richmond III. Well, when you look at it as lead guards or combo guards and wings, those guys, you have to wonder, are any of those in play to be part of this camp, in addition to JJ Andrews? you also, because you have other high school players, JJ in the class of 2026, guys like Jordan Smith Jr., Tyron Stokes, Brandon McCoy. Some of these names come to mind. Tyrone Jamison, the top 15 rated 5-star from the class of 2027. Last year, the high school players were mostly 2025, now incoming freshmen this season, but some 2026. So the comparison this year would be mostly 2026, like J.J. Andrews, but maybe some class of 2027. Again, Tyrone Jamison, who just picked up that Arkansas offer, took the unofficial visit last November, and is really, is really high on these Hogs, and has a, could be that next high level point guard from that class that Calipari really zeroes in on. You wonder about guys like that, guys like Beckham Black, who's one of the top lead guards in the country in that 2027 class. Tay Kenny, the 5-star 2026 lead guard, who's going to visit Arkansas in late September. A lot of names come to mind here as possibilities we're going to keep an eye on. So it won't just be Arkansas's committed J.J. Andrews. There may be some other players here, either directly already Razorbacks that get invited and take part. We're going to keep an eye on it. My sources who will be on hand don't know all the names. They'd heard about JJ, that he was likely to take part in this, but we'll find out soon enough, and we'll come back and talk about that. What other either Razorbacks or Arkansas recruits, in addition to JJ Andrews, are taking part in this. So that's a pretty big deal. Again, he's rolling right into August, taking part in elite camp, and this is all about the work and getting better. So I salute him for that. Not being, not resting on laurels or taking a well-deserved break. Just keep it going, man. And we'll see what else is on the horizon for JJ Andrews. It's just another big stage, another big opportunity. And remember, this is exposure in front of NBA scouts. And one particular scout that I'm talking to about this, I'll talk to 2 or 3 more that may be going as well later today. But this scout has already seen JJ in a camp setting last year, and I believe it was Dame Lillard's camp, and he loved him. He loved the blue collar, the winner aspect that we keep talking about, because we've talked about it since well before the big splash this spring that led to the championship in July. We've been talking about how he plays for years, so it's nothing new to us. And these opportunities are great, especially in front of NBA folks. All right, let's move on now. Let's wrap this up with really, we'll call it a top 5. We're going to go through Arkansas's, what we know are their top 9 players. And then you're waiting on guys like Paulo Samito, Elmir Zavitz, who are expected to arrive in the next couple of weeks for the start of the fall semester. I always wonder about, with the ability of students now to be enrolled and do online work, and someone's coming from overseas or whatever, would there be a delay in actually getting them on campus, which would mean a delay in on-court work with the team? Those are speculative things. I'm not expecting that, but you just never know. Otherwise, school starts back August 18th. And so you got to think the team will be back a few days before that, even these 2 late additions that haven't been on campus yet. 37 is an old fish. But having said that, we know who the top 9 who have been on campus, who they are. And we're going to start off. I've got his photo in the thumbnail. It's Trevor Brazile getting ready to swat a shot up there playing near, around the rim. We're going to call him the most valuable player and the number 1 ranked player on the Arkansas Razorbacks team based on the work in the summer. Again, it was limited practice stuff. The day the media was in the building, we talked so much about it. Trevor Brazile was the best player on the court at both ends. The early reports we were getting from sources were, that Nick Pringle may be ahead just out of the gates of the other bigs because of his size and his motor getting up and down the court and, oohing and awing the folks in the building with some of the dunks. What things Trevor Brazile can do, and we know how Trevor Brazile finished the season. But if you remember, when I talked to the source who's a coach, not on the staff, who'd been to 2 practices, it was the first time that Trevor Brazile was the first name among the frontline guys brought up. And then that just continued. We saw him in practice that way. And then when they finished out the summer. And so by all accounts, Trevor Brazile ends up being my MVP and number 1 player. And I think with the sources that I have that consistently got back to me with what was going on inside those doors, they would agree with that. They kind of settled on the same idea and principle based on that. Again, it's a small sample size, but it's a great way for Trevor Brazile to resume what he finished last season doing. We've seen a career at Arkansas with a guy that's been up and down. Injuries part of that, lackluster play at times. Let's be honest. And you're just wondering where's the excellence and then the consistency of excellence. And so far, he's just built on. I think he's better than what we saw the last 9 games of last year, which was pretty damn outstanding. Once Adu Thero went out, this guy really raised the level of his game and was just lights out. He's bigger now. He's even, he's added good weight. And he seems locked in consistently. The motor, is not only turned on, but left on. And that's what you need from him. And so this guy, yeah, Arkansas's best player in the summer, period. Let's move on. It's a close call for second and third. For the longest time, Darius Acuff Jr., the true freshman, was the name I heard the most, in addition to Billy Richmond III. And for a while, it was Nick Pringle, then Trevor Brazile, but Darius Acuff Jr. But the guy that made up a lot of ground, and when you looked at the consistently throughout, it's another retention piece, another veteran, and it's a guy that we just talked about the backcourt yesterday that's going to have to be a leader, going to have to raise the level of his game, his performances, and be more consistent himself, clean up the turnovers. Hopefully he improves as a three-point shooter, but continues to, set your defense on the perimeter on one end, and then he's going to spend a lot of time as a floor leader and on the lead guard sharing those duties with Darius Acuff Jr. But this is almost a coin toss, but we're going to defer to the veteran. Coming in at number 2 on this top 5 list of the summer performers is junior guard DJ Wagner. 3rd year under Calipari upcoming. 2nd year at Arkansas, we got DJ Wagner slotted in the 2nd spot. Very close. This could have gone to Darius Acuff Jr., the freshman, true freshman 5-star national player of the year, according to one opinion last year, and a top 5 rated guy pretty much across the board. You looked at most All-American teams. He was a first-team All-American, top 5 players. And so Darius Acuff Jr. has been good, really, really good, consistently in practices. And I think what has really got has really raised positive eyebrows is the fact that he's really focused a lot on being a facilitator and setting up teammates. It's a very talented team. We know Acuff can score and go get his, but to really concentrate on focus on being a facilitator and learning that chemistry, building that chemistry with its teammates, trusting teammates to go and finish, being a setup guy, that's big. I still obviously have question marks like I do with DJ Wagner. We've talked 3-point shooting and some other stuff. Defensively with Acuff, not with DJ right now, but that's going to be the case with most true freshmen. But starting with Trevor Brazile as our summer MVP and top-rated player coming out of summer camp, it's DJ Wagner too, Darius Acuff Jr. In the 3 spot. Now, this may surprise you. This one kind of surprised me. But again, this is coming from my source who's been in the building more than anybody other than those coaches and those players. And this source tells me the work that Carter Knox did, the ground he made up in the final 7 to 10 days of summer work. Now, I was in the building that day for an hour with other media, and Carter was doing just fine. He didn't necessarily stand out, but he wasn't taking a lot of shots. It was a small window. We saw 1 hour of practice, not a whole lot. But I'm told, especially that final week, he was probably the best player on the court the final week, knocking down threes consistently, doing all the stuff that, to this observer, made him see a path. It was a matter of time where he got acclimated. Remember, he was late to the party, getting back out of the NBA draft experience, going through that, getting feedback, and then he took some more time off, and kind of late getting back in there, getting his sea legs back, getting acclimated to some newcomers. It's a different season, but he's in great shape, and he started to look the part in the final week, and not just look the part, but he was blazing a trail, I'm told, and it was a great send-off. And I think it was one of the reasons John Calipari was in such a great mood when he said we had a great summer, and it's kind of random where all this good stuff's coming from. And so Calipari was pleased with it. I think a lot of that was, again, the emergence of Carter Knox revealing what we think is the path he should be on, which is making strides, even as he made strides through the midway point as a freshman and was just really good by the end of the year. The same way that Trevor Brazil's taken it to another level, how he left the season, you want Carter Knox to do the same thing. And again, maybe a little slow start for him, but he finished like gangbusters. I've got him rated fourth out of the on the team in terms of the summer work. This easily could have been Billy Richmond the third, who we're going to have the 5 spot. He was consistently brought up from day one. The hour I spent in the building, he looked stronger to me. He looked just as aggressive, just as athletic, just as much of a pest defensively. This is the kind of defender you put on Malik Thomas, the other 5-star freshman, to help him get better, because he's going to win most of those battles right now and make Thomas figure things out sooner rather than later. But Billy Richmond III was also, the day I was in there, knocking down his shots, knocking down threes, knocking down the mid-range shots. He looked comfortable, not as rushed in getting into his. And then we heard reports even before we were in there and at other times that his shot looked better and was more consistent. So Billy Richmond III, if you'd have asked me 2 weeks ago if I was doing a list like this, he'd have definitely been in the top 3. Right now, the way the dust settled, he rounds out my top 5. And then positive things were said throughout for guys like Malik Thomas, Malik Ewan, obviously, offensively, Nick Pringle more defensively. And again, he was talked about a lot more in the early going. And I think the other bigs really started to kind of turn it on. And they have, probably they bring more to the table in terms of positional versatility as 4-5s when we talk Brazil and Malik Ewan. They can shoot and stretch the floor a little bit better offensively. But Nick Pringle's no slouch, and he's got all that SEC experience. And so those were the next 3 names I heard the most from and good things about. I think Malik Thomas, the sort of the cap, what will encapsulate the take for his summer was it kind of started off in a positive light, then kind of faded for a while, trying to make adjustments going up against some of those veteran guys that were defending him. And then by the end of it, he'd picked it back up and started to look like he belonged and started to figure things out and started to show the promise that we know he brings as a guy that can be, an elite scorer, an alpha scorer, a shooter. So you have a little bit up and down, but you're going to expect that with freshmen. And so, we talked about the guard core yesterday and how he's got even potential as a freshman if he continues to buy in and learn and then implement to be even a decent defender, a good defender maybe. We'll see. I mean, he's got to go and do it, but there's potential for that. Again, Malik Ewan probably at the end of this, based on the source information, probably evened up with Nick Pringle and maybe exceeded where, people see this as. And we've oscillated with assuming Ewan would just slot in as the starting 5. And then recently, even as recently as yesterday, said, if the season started today, maybe it would be Nick Pringle. I think there's a real battle there. There's no question that Trevor Brazil is going to start at the 4. So now, and it may end up not mattering who starts. It may be more about they're going to have starter value, both of them, and play similar minutes. May not be the same kind of player, but they're both going to get their share of run when we talk Malik Ewan and Nick Pringle. Then Isaiah Seeley, the 9th man, did some really good things to the summer. But when I put the source information together, nobody had him rated higher than any of the top 8 guys that we've talked so much about, where we could see definite roles, definite minutes allocations, those kind of things in the near future. We think Isaiah Seeley's going to be that 9th guy. We think he'll have some kind of a role. Not quite sure yet on how to project. If you were to say game to game, how many minutes and when does he come in and what's he doing out there? What's the role? Not quite there yet. All right. Thanks for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. If you haven't done it already, please hit subscribe, like, and share. We're going to get out here just a hair under 30 minutes today. Try to shorten these up a little bit. Thanks for being here. If something big breaks later, we'll jump back on. If not, until tomorrow, we may go early again. We'll see. Thanks for being here. Take care of yourselves. Appreciate all of you. See you soon.